All right, now that we have our style sheet linked on all of our pages and our font style sheet linked on all of our pages, we're going to go in and start planning out our styles. So switch over to your style.css page. And what we're going to do first is add some comments so that we have kind of an organization. What often happens for people is that they just start throwing styles into this style sheet, and then it's really hard to tell where your bugs are or where the styles for different sections are. And so we're going to plan this in advance so it turns out better. So to do a comment, which is just a note to yourself, in CSS, it's different from HTML. It's a /*. That's what starts a comment. So I'm just going to go through and say like style the full body and then a */ to end that. Give yourself some space. And then I'm going to think about the different sections of the body. So think about our semantic tags. So /*, style the header, /*, style the nav, /* style the main. And we're going to have tons of stuff inside of the main, especially because we have, different headings and paragraphs and images and all kinds of stuff. But we'll just leave this big category for now. And a few enters, /* style the footer. All right, so that gives us some general organization to get into and start adding some styles to. And the first thing we really want to set up is kind of the page layout, the big general page layout. And this works best if we do a little bit of background color first so that you can see where everything is. It's not going to end up the same size and style and everything as we're about to put in, but it just allows us to see where everything is so that we can style it a little bit more easily. So let's go in where it says style the full body, way up at the top. And the selector that we use to style the full body of our page is simply body. Then we do our open curly brace and hit enter, and it should give us our closing curly brace. So what we're going to do to start is just add a background color. Background, don't forget the G, I see that missing a lot, color, colon. And it should fill in the semicolon for you. Now, over on Canvas, I've given you all of the color codes that we need. So we're going to use this cream color. Copy that one. It's the one that starts with F2. And then we'll pop back over, and that's going to be our background color for the whole page. So let's refresh, and you should see that change to kind of a creamy beigey color. All right, so that's populating our whole page all the way to the bottom, and it should be on every page. So if I go to another page, yep, it's there too. If that color's not showing up on one of your pages, it means we didn't get your link tag on correctly. Okay, cool, we've added a background color. We're actually going to go ahead and add different background colors to the nav and to the footer so that we can see a little bit more clearly where those sections are, and I want to show you some spacing issues. So let's go ahead and go to style the nav. We're skipping the header, go to style the nav, and use the nav tag, and let's add a background color to that. And this time, going over to our color list, let's add the dark green. So there's our dark green for the nav. Let's refresh. And yes, this looks horrible. The contrast is terrible. Don't worry, we're going to fix it. But you can see where exactly the nav is located, and that's exactly what we need. Okay, we're going to do the same thing for the footer, and we're actually going to use that same color. So let's go down to style the footer and do footer. And I'm just going to copy and paste the background color from the nav. So this is the principle of repetition. I'm using the same color in the nav as I'm using in the footer. And if I refresh, now I can see all the way at the bottom my footer hanging out down there. I know we can't read it, but we can see it. So I'm going to pop this into a new window because I want you to notice something. Notice how the nav is floating off of the edge a little bit and how the footer is doing the same. I'm going to go ahead and add a temporary color to some of our others so that we can see it. So let me add a temporary color to the header. It's a little bit hard to see with that body background color. So let's go ahead and add the orange just to be annoying so we can see it. So I'm going to add the lighter orange color just as a temporary thing. Oops, forgot background dash color, semicolon, and then my colon at the end so we can see the header better. See how that's just kind of floating right there? And then let's do the same thing with the main. So main, background color, and then that same orange. All right, so what we end up with is this awful stripy beast of a website, but I want you to notice the space. So this is margin. It is the space outside of an element. So thinking about that box model, okay? Padding would be here around on the inside. It would make more orange color, whereas margin is on the outside, and that's why we can see that body background color, okay? So eventually we are going to want some of our elements to push all the way to the edges and some of our elements to be inset a little bit. So this is the idea of kind of playing with our page layout, the overall page layout. We're not talking about specific elements yet, but the overall page layouts. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the body to start. And we're going to set the margin of the body to 0. And you can add pixels to that if you want, but it defaults to pixels in this case. Okay? And notice what that did when I refreshed. I'm going to refresh over here. Is it took everything side to side all the way out to the edges. Okay? So that's pretty cool. That gives me that full span of the website to work with. Now, generally, what I want is for my body, my header, my nav, and my footer all to take up all the space they possibly can. But then the main, we often like to float in a little bit. Okay, so that's the goal we're going for right now. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to tell the margin, or the header, excuse me, that I want it to have 0 margin. And I want you guys to notice, I'm not adding another header rule set. I'm adding the margin property value pair to the existing header rule set. Don't repeat yourself. I should never find more than one rule set for a single element, okay? So if you've already got a header element or a header selector, then go ahead and keep building on that rule set. Okay, so body has a margin of 0. Header has a margin of 0. Our nav is also going to have a margin of 0. Leave the main for now, and let's go add a margin of 0 to the footer. And let's see what happened based on that. Not much at the moment. And part of this is because we haven't added kind of content to each of those, okay? So we've got a full stretch on our middle elements. We've made sure that our header, our nav, and our footer are always going to stretch to the outside edges. But the main, I don't love that it's right up against the edge here. That's kind of bugging me at the moment. So what we're going to do is add some margin to the main. So let's go into our main rule set and add a margin property. Okay. So there are secretly like 4 different margins we could add. We can add the left side, the top, the right side, and the bottom. Okay, so what we're going to do in this case is say I don't want any margin top and bottom. So I'm going to start with 0. But I do want some margin on the 2 sides, the left and the right. And it's best if we can do this with a percentage, okay? So let's start by adding 2%, and you can see what you think. Now I could go around and say 0 and 2% again, top right, top left. But we can shorthand it. If I want the same margin on the top and bottom as I want on the left and right, then I can do it this way. So let's refresh and see what happened. So let's look at our big one. Okay, notice that now my main section has been popped in 2% on either side. And if I shrink this down, it's going to stay a 2% ratio. So that's why we use the percent instead of pixels, because it's going to keep it at a specific ratio no matter how big or small my page gets. So you can play around with this. You can make this number bigger or smaller. If you want this to pop in farther, then why not try like a 5% or a 10% if you want to. So I just changed it to 5%, and you'll see that it came in even farther. Okay, so that's going to be super useful to us. We are not going to leave this page orange. Let's go ahead and take the orange off of the main so you can see what this ends up looking like. So I'm going to take the background color completely off of the main. That means it'll end up with just the body background color. And then let me refresh. There, and you can see that my content is all shifted over left and right. And again, I can add more or less. Let me change this to 10% margin so that you can see what that looks like. Let me go to the big one, refresh. So it's shoving it in from both the left and right side at the same time. So if you're wanting the main section of your website to be narrower than the rest of your site, which is fairly common, then that's how you do it. You add some margin on the left and right sides. Okay, so adding those background colors just helped us to see that a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and take the background color off of the header, but I'm going to leave it on the nav and the footer. This is actually the color those are going to end up being, is that dark green. So when I refresh, when I look at my big one, refresh, I end up with my kind of creamy beige at the top with Keto Delights all the way to the left-hand side. We'll fix that later. I've got a green banner where my nav is going to end up looking nice. Right now it looks terrible. I've got my content for the main shoved more into the middle, and you can decide how much you'd like that. And then I've got a green banner down here for my footer. So we've got our basic page layout or page structure set up and ready to go.